Welcome to Seize the Mains by Malhotra IS Academy. I am Siddhi Sardana and I will be taking this daily answer writing initiative from Monday to Friday at 9 p.m. Today is the second day of daily answer writing practice. If you are new to this initiative and you are struggling with answer writing, then I recommend that you watch our first video of this series where we have discussed the basic components of answer writing and how you can write excellent answers by incorporating some basic practices in your daily practice schedule. Our topic for today, that is day 2, is Indian Constitution. This topic has been taken from GS paper 2 and it has been divided into many subcomponents which we'll see in a minute. I request you to download the schedule for this series for the next 30 days from our Telegram channel. And now let's proceed on to daily answer writing practice. The syllabus of UPSC Civil Services exam GS paper 2 has two subcomponents for the Indian Constitution. These subcomponents are listed here. As you can see, the first component talks about the Constitution of India in general. What are the historical underpinnings, evolution, features, the amendments to the Constitution that have taken place over time, significant provisions, and most importantly, the basic structure of the Constitution. So this is your part 1 of the syllabus which covers the Indian Constitution. The second part of the syllabus from Indian Constitution is the comparison of Indian Constitution with other constitutions of the world. So we will be taking both these components together and let's see what question can we discuss for today. Before I change the screen and display the question, I recommend that you keep a pen and a paper with you so that as and when you see the question, you note down your own points. What are the main points you can think of on seeing the question which is yet to be displayed? I would recommend that you should pause the video for 1 or 2 minutes and try to recall or think what are the points that you should be writing, how will you adhere to the word limit, and what will be the structure of your answer. So let's proceed. Here's your question. India and USA are the two large democracies. We all know that. Examine the basic tenets on which the two political systems are based. First of all, this is the previous year UPSC mains exam question. It was asked in 2018 and this question has to be answered by you in 150 words and it will fetch you 10 marks. So the first thing about this question is that it is a very short answer. 150 words, when you'll end up writing 150 words, you'll not even know. So it's better that you pause the video and write down some points, only the important points which you will be showing to the examiner presenting in your answer. And now let's proceed with discussing the question. The first statement of this question talks about the largest democracies of the world. Of course, the topic has been Constitution of India and its comparison with other constitutions. So Indian Constitution has to be addressed here. So India and USA are the two large democracies. We understand that India is the largest democracy by population and USA is the largest democracy of the world by area. Also, USA is the oldest democracy. So let's proceed further and underline the keywords and the directives in this question. And then we'll see how we'll frame our answer. So our first keyword here is democracies. So you need to talk about democratic polity of India and USA in general. This line would be paraphrased and used as our introduction. You don't have to copy the entire line for your introduction, but you have to build a paragraph which uses some different words and some ideas that you know about the first statement. Once you elaborate about the first statement, you'll go on to address the question part, which is the second part of this question. The question contains one part only, but the second statement is the actual question. This is just building up the tempo for your answer. So let's see what is the second part. Examine the basic tenets. So here is the word examine. This is the directive for today's question. I'm marking it D. This is your directive. Examine the basic tenets. What are tenets? We'll discuss in a while. Examine the basic tenets on which the two political systems are based. So, don't confuse the word political systems with politics of the country. Political systems are basically the doctrines or institutions on which the country functions. So, you have to talk about very political terms which you've read in your Indian polity books, general books of Indian polity. You have to talk about those institutions on which the polities of both the countries are based. And tenets, the word tenets here means beliefs or some ongoing processes of the political system. So since the directive here is examine, we need to write in detail about all the political systems which are common to both the countries. It is not a discuss or a debate or analyze question. This is just simply an examine question. So you will talk about in detail about what is being asked in the question, about what is being referred to in the question. Most of the questions in the UPSC will have 2 or 3 statements. Sometimes in the state civil services also you will see questions with 2 statements, not more than that. So when you have that, just as I said earlier, use the initial parts of the question to build a tempo for your body paragraphs. The examiner is already thinking in these terms, in terms of democracy, democracies of India, USA, their constitution. So build your introduction by taking help from the statement that's been given in the question, from the first statement of the question. So let's see how we will build our answer. Always keep in mind the word limit, and if the word limit is less, you should practice for writing 150 words question and try to finish them in like as soon as possible. They should take lesser time as compared to questions which will fetch you 15 marks, because the examination will consist of both types of questions or maybe a third type which UPSC might introduce anytime. So you need to practice all questions with all sorts of word limits. So let's start. Let's see how we are going to answer this question, how we will build this answer. So here we begin with the first part of the answer to the question. In this first part, that is the introduction, we will be defining what's already given in the question, in the statement. We will be talking about it in general. So let's see what we've written here. I hope the screen is, yeah. The procedures and principles that govern any country are the product of socio-political demands of time. What does this line mean and why this line has been drafted here? The procedure and principles that govern any country. What is a procedure and what is a principle? It could be your constitution, it could be your laws, it could be the political tenets, political structures that's been asked in this question. So any kind of procedures or principles or any institutions that are used to govern a country, they are put in place just because they are needed at a specific point of time, because the society demands it, the political condition of that country demands them. So that's why they are put in place, and this is the basic, simple, general introduction that we have used here to give a push to our next introduction line, that is line number 2. The procedures and principles that govern any country are the product of socio-political demands of time. For example, you know that in India, we have a federal structure with more powers inclined towards the central government. Why is it so? Because at the time of independence, there were many disparities and there was a fear that the country might divide into more smaller parts. So that's why such a provision was made in the constitution. So the first line explains just this part in a very general form. So read it for yourself. In the next line, we are talking generally about the constitutions of both the countries. So we have started here by saying that the USA, the United States of America, the oldest democracy of the world, framed its constitution, drafted its constitution back in 1789. While India, like you can also say that India, you know, became a republic in 1950 or drafted its constitution on so and so date, but that makes the answer monotonous. The examiner reads it and he sees that okay, only 2 dates have been mentioned and this is the introduction that he or she has written, so it gets very monotonous for the examiner. So in the first part of second line, we have written that USA, the oldest democracy, we have mentioned here. The question already says that India and USA are the two largest democracies. So just make sure that you don't use the word or the term largest democracy more and more times. Just you know, hold yourself from using that particular term which has already been put in the question. Paraphrase it into something else, or just add some part of your knowledge into the introduction so that the examiner knows that you have read properly this part of the syllabus. So as you can see, I have written here, while USA, the oldest democracy of the world, drafted its constitution in 1789, India, since independence, continues to grow with the doctrine of constitutional supremacy. Continues to grow or continues to run with the doctrine of constitutional supremacy. So in a way, in second line of introduction, we have made it very clear how the constitutions are important to both the democracies of the world. So we have talked about constitutions for both the democracies in general, and we have used different facts for both the countries. Now let's see what can be the linkage points through which we can build a structure for this answer, and we can proceed to write down the actual answer, the actual tenets, the basic tenets of both the constitutions, which is the actual demand of the question. So let's proceed. So starting with the linkage points, linkage point is basically what you can do is, if you find the introduction short, you can just associate this linkage point in the first paragraph itself, or if you see that your introduction paragraph has already exceeded 50 words, you can frame a short separate paragraph for linkage point to make it, to highlight it to the examiner, that now you are going to turn the direction of your answer to give it the direction which is actually required in the question. So that's what the importance of this paragraph. So let's see. Keeping in view the changing cultural, social and economic dynamics, both the nations have evolved the functioning of their polities with time. This is a very genuine statement, because in the first statement, in the introduction paragraph, we talked about the procedures and principles that govern any country are the product of socio-political demands of time, and here we are appraising the fact in linkage points, we are appraising the fact that with the changing demands of time, these countries have evolved, these countries have changed their constitutions, and like keeping in view the small word limit, we will not be talking about how USA has evolved, we will just use a general statement that both the countries have evolved over time. They have been very progressive with changes for the benefit of society, for the benefit of economy, and they have changed their political structures accordingly. Here we are talking about that they have changed their constitutions accordingly by mentioning specifically about India. You can, like if you see that the word limit is already crossing the 150 mark, you can choose to delete one of these statements, or you can choose to amalgamate the introduction or linkage points together. So you have to keep in mind the word limit also. This has been taken into a detailed discussion so as to explain you. Choose whatever is right for you. India has already seen over 100 constitutional amendments so far. However, the basic tenets, okay, we'll do this line later. India has already seen over 100 constitutional amendments so far. So this is a very general and a very technical statement. When you use words like over 100 constitutional amendments so far, don't freak out about writing the exact data. Okay, these many amendments have happened, 102, 103, whatever. Don't freak out on that. Just say, just use this. Use approximate data. This will be easier to learn and it will showcase to the examiner that you are making a point which you already know about, about which the facts in your brain are already very clear, and you understand this process, the evolving of constitution. You understand this process and you understand how the comparative analysis of all the constitutions of the world takes place and how the constitutions of the world are evolving. So this is an appraisal statement for India, that it has already seen more than 100 constitutional amendments with time to adhere to the demands of changing cultural, social and economic dynamics. Okay, over 100 constitutional amendments so far. And now when you see the last line, let's read it first. However, the basic tenets of the political systems of both the nation states remain similar. They are discussed as follows. So as you can see, this last line, however, the basic tenets of the political systems of both nation states. So this is another academic vocabulary. We all know what do we mean by nation state. If you have read polity, these terms must be very familiar to you. We are just learning here how to structure them into the form of a good answer. However, the basic tenets of the political systems of both the nation states remain the same. Why have we written this? That irrespective of how they are evolving, their basic belief systems, their basic value systems on which their political systems run, on which their basic the constitution of both the countries have been framed, they are the same. And you know what we have been asked in the question? We have been asked to examine these political tenets. We have been asked to examine these political tenets which remain unique to, which remain common to both the countries. So here we have introduced, we have given an introduction, we have taken a flow towards moving towards the body paragraph of our answer. They are discussed as follows, and from now on you can just start writing the basic tenets, which is the actual demand of the question. See, in most of the questions you will have all the data. When you have studied basic GS books, when you have incorporated current affairs, you will know what the other aspirants know. If you have cleared prelims, and you will be clearing prelims this year, you will know what most of the aspirants know about. The question here is how to frame it, how to put it in the form of an answer. So body paragraphs, which we will be studying about in detail in the coming slides, body paragraphs will remain more or less the same for all the people taking the exam. What makes a difference, what fetches you good marks in an answer, how to write an excellent answer. You need to work on the introduction part, you need to have good conclusion, and to work on the introduction and conclusion you need to have a very good practice with answer writing so that your answer flows swiftly. You don't abruptly introduce new things into the answer. Okay, it should flow for the examiner. The examiner should feel that it has been written by an intelligent and well-learned person. Introduction, conclusion, your analytical capability, how you link different parts of the syllabus. Like the question that we discussed yesterday, it was an economy question which was discussed from the viewpoint of society. So your analysis depends. Here also, if you read the introduction and linkage points again and again, you will understand that apart from defining what the constitutions of both the countries look like, when they were adopted and why they were adopted, you know, as an aspirant, you understand that they have been evolving with time, and a constitution is a document which is placed to serve the needs of its citizens, needs of the citizens of the country. So if it is evolving in evolving constitution, this shows your analytical capability, that you recognize the fact that these are welfare states. Okay, so indirectly in our introduction and linkage points, we are trying to show it to the examiner that we understand beyond what the books have taught us. We understand, and we totally understand, we totally deserve high mark when we answer this question. Okay, so now your flow is ready, and as I talked about, introduction, conclusion and the structure of your answer. The third part is structure and presentation. That will fetch you more marks. The knowledge part remains more or less the same with all the aspirants, and if it is even not the same, it can always be studied before mains. But all this comes with practice. The analysis part, the presentation, the structure, framing, introductions and conclusions, understanding directives, this comes with practice. So that's why this initiative is in place right now. So let's get back to the question and let's see what the body paragraphs talk about. So now we come to discuss the body paragraphs. In this body paragraph, we have taken 7 points. We have discussed about 7 tenets of political structures of both the countries. You will not have much difficulty writing about the body paragraph, because this information is already available. It is available in a very good structure in your general books, whether you are following Lakshmikant for polity or you are referring to constitutional summaries or whatever. These body paragraphs, these points, especially for subjects like polity, especially for these subjects, these static subjects, body paragraphs will be very easy to frame. So these are the 7 points, these are the 7 basic tenets which are common to both the political structures. Since the question talks about examine, we have to write down what is common to both the political structure. We have to write down in detail. So here, as you can see that I have used some points, we've used some points, 3 on this page, and yeah, these are 7 points, 7 basic tenets which are common to both the political structures. Since this is a 150 word question, keep in mind that when you are writing headings and you are defining them, it takes a lot of words. So if you think that the answer you will be writing right now, it's crossing the word limit, then just delete these headings. First of all, let's discuss them. Delete the headings and just straight away mark points 1 to 7 and explain them in one line. 1 line or 2 lines. The second line should be an example or an article from the constitution or a part of constitution that you know about of both the countries. So keeping that word limit in mind, keeping the language of the answer very technical, since it's a polity question, you need to use articles, you need to use judgments. Judgments will not be used here of course, but other academic terms. So let's proceed on to discuss the points which are in the body paragraph first. So the first tenet is written constitution. Both the United States of America and India have given to their citizens written constitution. The citizens have given that constitution to themselves and it's written. It's written, done. The constitutions have been written, and based on that the federal structures of both the countries have been set up. So if you are using a heading, underline it or underline a keyword that you find in the definition following that heading. So here's your first part, written constitution. Second part is Bill of Rights and Fundamental Rights. So you know, fundamental rights are present, are given to citizens of both the countries of India and United States of America, and India took inspiration for writing fundamental rights from USA also. So mentioning this part is very important. After mentioning that the constitutions are written, just talk about in detail about the other political tenets. So talking about Bill of Rights and Fundamental Rights, supremacy of the federal or union government. In USA it's called the federal government, in India we call it the union government. So in both the nations, the central government, the federal government or union government, that is supreme, and states work independently but they work under that. if a law is passed which is from a subject of any of the list and the union passes the law, so that surpasses the law that has been passed by the state. So supremacy, talking about supremacy, it is common to both the countries. Let's see what are the other points. Separation of powers. There are three organs of government in three organs of polity in both the countries: executive, legislature and the judiciary. Executive to implement the policies or frame the policies, legislature, and the judiciary to defend the constitution, to interpret the constitution. So there is separation of powers. This is a very basic concept. It's available in your NCRTs also. I'm just telling you how to write down here in points. Powers of checks and balances. You can elaborate it by saying that though there is a separation of powers between all the organs of the government, but all the organs keep a check on the other organs so that there is no misuse of power. So this is the power of checks and balances. This is totally a polity language question. You can see that you cannot write a general answer. You need to go through your GS books time and again. You need to learn to practice to write all these terms and talk about them in detail. Rule of law and republicanism. You can also use them separately, like rule of law as a separate point and republicanism as a separate point. But since there was not a very elaborated definition, so you can amalgamate them. This is the next point here. And the last point is independent judiciary. See, independent judiciary is not a common thing to see around the world. So if a country has independent judiciary, it is a very important function of its political structure. So this is a point that you will find in most of the general books. This is a point that you will definitely have to mention it in your exam. Judiciary is a very important aspect of our political structure and of the political structure of United States of America. Since it's a very short question, you can just go on to define it in a single line that both the political systems provide for an independent judiciary to interpret the constitution and enforce the law. So here we have talked about 7 points. We have also seen that they have been elaborated. You need to elaborate them if the word limit is like 250 words. Otherwise, as I said earlier, just use one-liner points. Either cut the heading, don't use the heading, use a one-liner point and underline the keywords there, or just you can follow the method which I have used here. So I think there should not be a problem with the body paragraph. These points are very common. These points are very general. And now let's proceed on to see this diagram. See, when you are practicing writing answers, just ask yourself, I talked about it in the introductory video also, ask yourself and keep asking yourself before answering any question that are there any sort of maps, diagrams, flow charts or schematics that you can incorporate in your answer. If you can incorporate them in your answer, then try to fit them somewhere. Try to make them look very presentable, they fetch you more marks, and try to keep them as simple as possible. So in this answer, we have used 7 points in the body paragraph. So what you can do is you can either create a tree or a flow chart kind of a thing where you just use the headings, all these headings which have been written in black here. You'll also get the PDF of this PPT, so just go back and read it in detail. So whatever the points have been mentioned in black here, written constitution, Bill of Rights, supremacy of the union government, separation of powers, checks and balances, rule of law and independent judiciary. You could just make a very simple structure, a flow chart kind of a thing. Let's see, like for example here, draw a line, point number 1, point number 2, point number 3, 4 and so on. Go on to point number 7. This is a schematic. This is a kind of a chart. It does not add to your word limit criteria. It does not the examiner cannot cut marks if you have used some extra words in this diagram. So if you can incorporate, write down the points that have been written in black bold ink, try to write them here, and use the like the unbolded part of all the definitions as your body paragraphs 1 to 7. Okay, so this is the structure number 1. The second one is this. Since we are talking about USA and India, this is a very basic Venn diagram. We've taken USA on this side, like this circle represents USA and this circle represents India. USA we've written here is the oldest democracy, and under India we've written it's the largest democracy. So this is a very beautiful representation of both the democracies which we are talking about in this question. And this, the common part here is, like see, in this space USA is operating its polity on its own, here India is operating its political and economic structures on its own, and these are the basic tenets of political system which are common to both the nations, which are common to both the nations. And since these are common to both the nation, that's why this question has been asked. The examiner wants to know that whether you know about these or not. So these common basic tenets have been written here in this common part of the Venn diagram. So if you can make such diagrams, just carry something like a bangle kind of a thing with you in the exam, or create some cardboard type stencils. If you can get them from the market, well and good. But from today onwards, as you write your own answer after finishing this video, make sure that you start using such diagrams or such structures in your question, because they fetch you more marks, they make the answer more presentable. So here I've talked about 2, you can use any of them, whichever you like, and even if you don't use them, that's okay. The content of the question, the content of your answer is most important. So here we are done with the body paragraph. We also saw how are the linkage points framed and why are linkage points important. We also saw what introduction can do for you. So now coming to the conclusion. What do you write in conclusion? As I talked about that, introduction and conclusion could be the toughest parts to write for an answer. You will definitely know about the body paragraphs, and once you start to understand the directives as you practice with us, you will know that what part of the knowledge the examiner is asking from you, what analysis the examiner is demanding from you. But introduction and conclusion are really tough. So just keep experimenting, keep asking yourself, look around yourselves, go through a lot of newspapers and magazines, note down the viewpoints which the authors have been using there, and they will help to form better introductions and conclusions in your answers. So these two can be the toughest parts of writing an answer, but they also will fetch you very good marks, because these are the areas from where examiner will know that you actually are an intelligent aspirant, you know what you are writing, and you are better than other people who are taking the exam. So work on these parts very, very much efficiently as you prepare for your next examination cycle, whether for UPSC or state civil services. Coming back to the question, let's see what conclusion can be framed here. So as we talked about the democracies, the constitution of both the democracies, we went upon to talk about the basic tenets of both the constitutions and both the political systems of the countries. Now we need to give a forward looking or a summarizing conclusion. Okay, the US was once more capitalistic, whereas India was once more socialistic. Here are some technical terms. Okay, capitalistic and socialistic, and if you go through this line, this appears to be a very tough line, but it is a very simple one, and it will reflect your analysis power, your understanding power to the examiner. So this line is very important here. And then we say that since we have talked about something basic, we have seen that how their constitutions have evolved, and now we say that India and USA are both unique. Of course, we are very different countries, we have very different polities, so we will not say that they are very different. Like one is very old, one is very large in terms of area or population. We'll use the word unique. India and USA are both individually unique democracies. So this can be justified by the Venn diagram we used in the previous slide. Okay, they are very unique, and these are the common points that we discussed. India and USA are both individually unique democracies and now recognize themselves as welfare states. This is very important for a democracy. A democracy has to be a welfare state. If you have a written constitution in place, what is the constitution for? It is for the benefit of society, it is for the benefit of citizens. So just generally put out there that they recognize themselves as welfare states, irrespective of the fact what they were doing earlier or what were their historical conditions before. Now recognize themselves as welfare states. Both countries use affirmative action. Affirmative action is a step that you take to create more equity in the society, more equality, and create more equity in the society. And where affirmative action is required, it is required for the deprived sections of society. And both the countries have been doing it very successfully. They have come out with n number of policies and laws to ensure that they are just and equitable democracies. Both countries use affirmative action for minorities and deprived sections of society. They continue to respond to similar objectives and expectations in a constantly changing environment in their own ways. So that's how you conclude. Go through this conclusion again, go through it again and again, and you'll be able to understand why this conclusion has been formed this way, why has it been framed this way, and how it justifies the demand of the question. So here we are done discussing the question. After this, after you are done watching, just read the answer in detail, download the PDF from our Telegram channel. The link will be in the description below. Go through the entire answer, go through the question, check the word, check the meaning of the word examine, which is the directive used in this question. Google everything. If you don't know about something here, just Google it. Use your phone, use your dictionary, Google everything and deepen your understanding, enhance your knowledge with every answer that you write with us on a daily basis. After going through the whole of the answer, see what different you can do with the introduction or what different forward-looking conclusion you can write. If you want, you can also share your answers in the comment section below. If you want to add some points into the answer, just comment them, send them as comments to us under this video, and they'll also help other aspirants understand how we can innovate while writing answers. So, and if you want, you can also share your answers with us. This is what this initiative is about. Share your answers with us by tomorrow, that is 10th February before 12 p.m. So you'll have more than 12 answers for writing this question. As I said earlier, don't rush with writing in the stipulated time limit. If I say that 5-6 minutes should be okay for this answer or 7-8 minutes should be the maximum time you should be taking, don't go by my word. Just see that if you are a beginner or if you are struggling with handwriting or even basic spellings or grammar, so take your own time, learn to walk first before you start running. In the meantime, like as time passes, you will be able to definitely write answers in a very short span of time, and you will be definitely ready for mains if you continue the series with us. So write your answers, send them to us, and for tomorrow, first of all, I recommend again that you download our schedule for the next 30 days. For tomorrow, according to our schedule, we'll be taking topics from Science and Technology part, that is GS3. Yesterday we discussed GS1, today was for GS2, tomorrow is for GS3, that is Science and Technology. So you can also download the PDF for this PPT from the link in the description. Please try sending your answers in PDF format only so that it's easier for us to evaluate and respond back with a timely feedback. We've already received a great response on this initiative. Yesterday, that was the first day of our initiative. We have received a lot of answers and we will be responding back to you in a very short span of time with the feedback of our experts. So make sure that you note this email ID. It is also there in our description, and respond back to us by 12 p.m. tomorrow. So see you there. Just do some additional reading for tomorrow if you want for the topics of GS3, science and technology. We'll be coming out with tips on how to make notes for short notes for GS paper mains, and we'll be discussing it tomorrow. I'll be telling you how you can make efficient notes so that you just have to read one paper before you sit for the exam or go for your interview. So stay tuned, join us tomorrow, write the answer and send it to us ASAP. See you there.